Oh, come on. Come on. Come on. I adore Ratchet & Clank. Those two gosh darn doofball cheese nuggets are pretty much the only reason I get up in the morning. Well, that and all the other tedious everyday time sinks like eating and feeding the Blargian Snagglebeast. Oh my god, look who's hungry again. Big f***ing surprise! My two favorite things to do in a video game are platforming and shooting. If a game lets me bop around and administer a fatal dose of groin shots from my trusty groin banger, then I am in heaven. And nobody does it better than Insomniac Games. I mean, Ratchet & Clank combines the two genres with such skill, you'll wonder why more games didn't rip it off. Then again, why compete with perfection? Alright, maybe the first Ratchet game is a bit dated, but the more they made them, the better they were. And being such a huge fan, you'd imagine I have played every single game in the series, and I have. Except one. Ratchet & Clank Oh my god. Hello?
Hey, Flipperdinkle.
Aha, funny. Yeah, it's Fitherwinkle, actually.
Hey, what's your next review?
Wait, who's this?
It's Yoki, you snot rocket. Now tell me what the next review is.
Not that it's any of your business, but Ratchet & Clank Deadlocked, actually.
Oh, so you're reviewing baby games now. Hey, fellas, Mr. Finger in the Pink over here is reviewing baby games.
Finger in the Pink? What is that? Ratchet & Clank is not a baby's game.
Ratchet & Clank is a dumb baby's game for babies.
You're a baby's game for babies!
Hey, I'm a big boy for big boys!
Wait, what? Alright, look. Let's just calm down here.
Okay, agreed. Everyone knows Jack and Daxter is of a much higher quality anyways.
You Oh! Siri, what does Finger in the Pink mean? Ratchet & Clank Deadlocked, the fourth in the series. At the time, I remember being so disappointed with the reveal of this one. They seem to be dropping the platforming and making the game more of a shooter. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm always up for a shooter. I have my groin banger holstered and my trigger fingers as itchy as the next fellas, but I wasn't sure I wanted a Ratchet game that lost half of its DNA. And for that reason, I sorta just let this one slip on by like it never even existed. Well, it's now 2019 and I'm finally ready to give this one a shot. Does it hold up? Let's find out. It's a weird way of saying let's find out. I should cut. No, I'm keeping that. F***ing, I'm leaving it in! First, the story. Well, Ratchet & Clank have been kidnapped and are forced to compete in a Running Man-style game show. You hop from planet to planet like you would in previous entries, but instead of exploring the planet, you're just competing in linear challenges and rising through the ranks. And just as in previous entries, every world in Deadlocked is exploding with personality. I mean, just look at this stuff. What even is that thing? I don't care, let's kill it! Things blow up so good in this series. I mean, if you can break it, then you are guaranteed to have a fun time doing it. And while the wacky weapons have definitely been toned down in this one, there's still some good variety and customization options to play around with, and Deadlock's controls are sublime. If you're even a little familiar with modern shooters, then you'll wonder why more of them don't feel as good as this 13-year-old game from the PlayStation 2. Seriously, it feels even more fluid and responsive than most shooters today. This was the fourth entry in the series after all, and by now Insomniac Games had this thing nailed down tight. But what about the actual game? Well, this is where things get a little more complicated. As I feared all those years ago, a lot of the exploring and platforming has been nixed. There's still some of it here and there, just enough to remind you of what's missing, but for the most part, this is an action-heavy, balls-to-the-wall, dual-wielding groin bangers type of shooter. Where previous games in the series had you exploring planets, finding branching paths and secrets, and interacting with indigenous creatures, and just talking like this for some reason, this one feels more limited in scope. Instead of exploring all these planets, they all have you just competing in mostly linear challenges with a random vehicle section thrown in, all the while earning bolts for basically everything you do. You'll use them for your robot buddy upgrades and for buying guns. You kill a bunch of baddies, you travel to the next planet, you repeat the process over and over again. Most of the challenges are simple, go here and activate a thing scenarios, and we've all played those a million times before, but since the shooting feels so good, you won't care. I am all over the map on this one. Nothing here holds a candle to almost any other entry in the series, but it still manages to be fun and addicting in spite of its missing pieces. A lot of that has to do with just how great the game looks and feels. What you're doing might not be interesting, but doing it sure is fun. Like taking the plastic off a new electronic, or putting it back on and returning it to Best Buy because oops, you bought a Vizio. Part of the charm of the Ratchet series has always been the characters and the interactions between them. Deadlocked has almost none of that. It just all lands with a thud and you'll forget everything that happened the moment the credits roll. If you skip this one like I did, I would say it's still definitely worth a look. But if you want a true Ratchet experience, give the PS4 remake of the original a go, or, my personal favorite, a crack in time on the PlayStation 3. Now, if y'all don't mind, I have some aliens to pump full of hot lead with my groin banger. That sentence was a mistake.